is one of the nemesis, the evil demigods you can battle against. And this guy's really cool, gigantic. He's just toweringly massive. You can see some like a sorcerer falling like between his thumb and his finger. You can see a body falling. So this guy's really big. He's got tons of tentacles coming off him, and basically he's coming back from his exile and is laying waste to the world, starting with you in London. So every one of these nemesis have different play styles. So there's different mechanics with each one, and that really gives a ton of replayability and unique play experiences with each nemesis. And of course, you'll combine those with different archetypes, which give them different armies that they control. And you can also combine in different scenarios in classic Sorcerer fashion. The replayability is insanely high. So Zcerneboch has a rubble mechanic. So basically, he's destroying the city, and there's basically ruins everywhere as he's going through. And to simulate this with game mechanics, each player has a rubble pile at the beginning of the game. You take the top card of your deck and you put it in this face-up rubble pile. And as various effects in the game will generate more rubble. And when you generate rubble, you'll take the top card of your deck and add it to that rubble pile. And basically, each turn you're going to take damage based on how much rubble there is. And there's some other effects that will reference the rubble. And there's also some special counters that you'll be using. There are the tentacle counters. So these represent the tentacles, the Zcerneboch tentacles that are winding through the city and coming up through the sewers and just, are everywhere. And then there are Shadow Fiend counters. So Zcerneboch basically absorbs his victims, pulls them in with the tentacles and pulls them into his body. It basically traps their souls within him. Their souls can't escape. And basically, over time, the souls that he's absorbed become subservient to him, and he can basically release them, and they do his bidding. So during the battle, he'll be like releasing these souls, and they will be attacking the players. The tentacle counters get put onto battlefields through various effects in the game, and they basically work as shields. So basically, when you deal damage in a battlefield, you can't damage Zcerneboch himself, and you can't damage any of his minions until the tentacles are gone. So as you deal damage, you'll be removing those tentacle counters, and that will basically prevent the damage. So it makes it harder to take out his stuff. And then the Shadow Fiend counters, basically these things like these spirits like will rush out, attack quickly. So basically, occasional effects will have you add a Shadow Fiend counter to a minion an enemy minion in a battlefield, and basically minions with Shadow Fiend counters get to attack before all the other attacks in that battlefield. So if there's two minions with Shadow Fiend counters, let's say the players were going to get to attack first in the battlefield. First, those two minions with the Shadow Fiend counters get to attack. Then the players choose a minion to attack. Then Zcerneboch's minion attacks back and forth. So basically, the minions with Shadow Fiend counters get to like jump the priority and attack first. So basically, you can end up taking some big hits before any of your guys get to go if minions have those Shadow Fiend counters. In addition to these special game mechanics, each of the bosses, each nemesis has their own deck, and this deck controls all the elements of the gameplay. So whenever a player takes an action, it's immediately the Zcerneboch also gets to take an action, and his action is determined by flipping over the top card of the Nemesis deck, and the text on the top tells you what happens when that card's flipped over. So, for example, Breed of the Night, when he takes this action, you spawn the top minion from the archetype deck. So what army you're facing is a separate deck that comes from the archetype that you choose. So you might have, for example, the undead archetype, and in that case, you'd take a minion from that deck, flip it over, you'd weaken it until it has one essence remaining. So if it normally had like 3 essence, it'd be down to 1. And you put a Shadow Fiend counter on it. So this represents Zcerneboch releasing one of those souls to wreak havoc. So that's how you deal with an action from the Nemesis. And then you can see the card types. This one's a sorcery. So that's one where it just does what it says and then goes to the discard pile. There's flavor text in the middle. Then below that is an icon which has a color on it. When a minion in a battlefield which has where Zcerneboch is present, and the Zcerneboch is so large he'll be in 2 battlefields at once. When a minion in one of those battlefields attacks, they get a tactic based on the archetype. So you'd flip over this card. It would show you it's red. You'd look at the archetype, your oversized archetype card, and it would have icons on it and tell you what tactic bonus the minion gets from when the red shows up. So basically, there'll be a variety of different tactics that they get. And then finally, you'll see on the bottom, that's the critical effect. So basically, when players damage the Zcerneboch directly, basically there's these monoliths that are allowing the demigod to stay in our dimension, and you're attacking those, dealing damage to those. When you do damage to one of those with a critical hit, you get a bonus effect. So you flip over the top card, the Nemesis deck, and you read the text on the bottom that tells you what critical bonus. So in this case, you get to destroy a non-legend enemy minion. So basically just kill an enemy minion in that battle. Basically, these cards do a lot of work. They control all aspects of the game. So here you can see another one. And of course, each one has their own mechanic, own flavor text, a different critical effect, and they can be any of 4 different colors for effect happens when they do a tactic.